On behalf of everyone in the Center for Women's Leadership at the Forbes School of Business and Technology, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our first live event, Live and Lead with Courage. We are delighted to announce the grand opening of our center, and we're excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. You may notice many of our presenters are wearing red as a show of solidarity and a representation of boldness, passion, and fire in the belly. It's also a color of courage, which is much needed to launch this center in the midst of everything happening in our world right now. It is my pleasure to introduce our Center for Women's Leadership board members who have worked tirelessly on the launch of this organization over the last several months. At the Center for Women's Leadership at the Forbes School of Business and Technology, we have a clear mission and vision. Our mission statement is as follows. The mission of the Center for Women's Leadership is to provide a community for networking and professional development, and to make recommendations to organizational practices through existing and novel research. We envision a world in which all women are empowered as leaders. We are fortunate to have with us today the visionary that made this center possible. Bob Daugherty serves as the Dean of the Forbes School of Business and Technology. As an alumnus of Harvard University, Columbia University, and the University of Cambridge, Bob has an extensive background working in executive leadership roles. In addition to leading multiple educational institutions, Bob served as the chairman of EduVentures and as CEO of Cognitive Arts, a leading provider of instructional design technology for colleges and universities. He frequently serves as a conference panelist and symposium speaker, addressing topics that range from higher education to venture capital investing. The Center for Women's Leadership was created directly as a result of his support, leadership, and commitment to the promotion of gender equity in business. Please join me in welcoming Bob Daugherty, Dean of the Forbes School of Business and Technology.
Thank you, Brandy. That was a very nice warm welcome. I'm delighted to welcome everyone to the kickoff of the Center for Women's Leadership. I want to especially welcome our students, our faculty, our administration, members of our Board of Trustees, and our special guests. We have an exciting session today. We have Gerri Wilson, who's an Ashford alum and a doctoral candidate, will be speaking, and I'm delighted that Margie Warrell, who's a best-selling author, internationally renowned speaker, is joining us today, and we look forward to both of their talks. You saw the page of names of people and faces and names. I'm actually going to read those off because I think this type of recognition is important. So, and Brandy used the word tireless efforts, and it's really true that without these people, the Center for Women's Leadership would not be getting off the ground today. So I personally want to thank Katie Theory, Karen Ivey, Maya Zetsche, Jenny Walker, Brandy Havens, Michael Hayden, Irina Weisblatt, Leah Westerman, Avisha Shanangad, Gail Hoskins Long, Morgan Johnson, Connie Witten, Katie Shea, Anna Allen, and Susan Gold. Thank you all very much. I am absolutely delighted that we're launching today because it was 48 years ago this week that Title IX came into law, paving the way for women's sports. Representative Patsy Mink, who was the first woman of color ever elected to the US Congress, co-authored the bill. And in fact, Title IX is named after her. The impact that it had since it's going into law has been really remarkable. Prior to it, less than 300,000 high school girls participated in sports. Today, that number is over 4 million. At the time that it was enacted, less than 15% of NCAA student athletes were women, and now it's 44%. And frankly, we need a Title IX for political leadership and for corporate leadership. If you look at the 10 largest economies in the world, only one is run by a woman, and that's in Germany. If you look at the S&P 500, which are the 500 largest companies in the US and represent 80% of the market capitalization, only 29 of the 500 are women. It's a lousy 6%. So those are just a couple of data points and reasons that we're launching this Center for Women's Leadership. And at the core of the vision is that all women are empowered leaders. And I really mean this. We are on a mission with a very unique purpose to provide information, resources, mentoring, and networking opportunities for all of our students, our alumni, practitioners, and scholars. You know, for over 100 years, Forbes has been reporting on the leaders and innovators that are shaping cutting-edge companies, industries, and technologies. And at the Forbes School of Business and Technology, we are integrating that legacy into our classes and into our curriculum for our over 17,000 students so that they can get a glimpse into the future. Moira Forbes, publisher of Forbes Women, is very supportive of CWL. And as Melinda Gates shared, women and girls should be able to determine their own future no matter where they are born. So I am highly confident that change can and will happen. My great-grandmother, Elizabeth Fogarty, who was first generation in America from Ireland, who lived to be 96 years old and who I got to know and appreciate as a teenager, used to share stories about how she and her friends marched for the ratification of the 19th Amendment, giving all women the right to vote. In fact, this August 18th is the 100th anniversary of that ratification. So my hope is it's going to be far less than 100 years that we see equal representation in government, in boardrooms, and in leadership positions for women. I sincerely want to thank all of you for attending, for your interest in the CWL, and I know we're all looking forward to its growth and impact in the coming years. So I'm going to hand things over to Dr. Maya Zetsche, Department Chair of Advanced Management Studies. Maya.
Thank you so much, Bob. We appreciate your leadership and your support. It is now my distinct honor and my pleasure to introduce our university president, Dr. Craig Swenson. Dr. Craig Swenson is the president and chief executive officer of Ashford University. With more than 40 years of experience in higher education, Dr. Swenson is a recognized national leader. In 2015, Dr. Swenson served as interim president of University of the Rockies. Prior to that, he served as Chancellor Emeritus and was a professor of higher education administration at Argosy University. He also served as Chancellor of the Argosy System for 7 years and held the position of Chief Academic Officer for Education Management Corporation for several years. Before his tenure at Argosy University, Dr. Swenson was Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs at Western Governors University. Prior to that, he served as Provost and Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs over the University of Phoenix System. Dr. Swenson will now offer his words of support to our new organization.
I'm so honored to be invited to attend and help inaugurate the Center for Women's Leadership. I appreciate the hundreds of hours of both thought and planning, as well as the time that it has taken to execute and put this together. And I believe that the Center for Women's Leadership has the potential to become a force in our society and to make a significant difference in our organizations. There's never been a time in our history when leadership was more severely in need from every member of our society. And organizations fail to recognize the tremendous talent of women and of people of color and of all of the members of organizations whose talents can only be really tapped into if they are given an opportunity to shine. And I believe that that is is what the Forbes Center for Women's Leadership has the potential to do. If I had a bottle of champagne to smash across the hull of this great ship and watch it go down into the ocean and begin its voyage, I would be thrilled. But I will leave you with that image and wish you bon voyage and much success. And I'm looking forward to being a part of this great effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swenson. Go ahead, Brandy.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate your leadership and your support, Dr. Swenson. Our keynote speaker today is Margie Worrell, best-selling author, sought-after international leadership speaker, and certified master coach with a background in business and psychology, currently undertaking her PhD in the interplay of gender, power, and leadership. Margie's a member of the advisory board of the Forbes School of Business and Technology, and she is the authority on the subject of women's leadership. Margie works as an advocate for gender equality and empowerment. While Margie comes from a humble beginning as one of 7 children growing up on a dairy farm in rural Australia, her work and achievements have had an impact on women worldwide. Margie's worked with well-known organizations including NASA, the United Nations Foundation, Microsoft, and Berkshire Hathaway. The Wall Street Journal has referred to her as an international authority on brave leadership. Margie founded the organization Global Courage to embolden brave leadership and advance women into decision-making roles. She did this while also raising 4 small children. She's a Women's Economic Forum honoree and ambassador for Women in Global Business and Google's Women Will program. Margie's just as fearless and adventurous in her personal life as in her business pursuits and has been known to cross the Sahara Desert, hike the Inca Trail, swim with piranhas in the Amazon, cycle through Beijing, and climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Please join me in welcoming Margie Worrell.
Thank you for that introduction. And I also just want to say, along with Bob, what he was saying before about just the vision for the Center for Women's Leadership, creating a world in which all women feel empowered to lead. I can't think of a more important time to be supporting a vision like that. You know, women make great leaders. We are innately empathetic, we're collaborative, we're bridge builders. And so right now, I think we absolutely need to be supporting women to see themselves as leaders and to step up to the leadership plate. And yet the research shows that many women struggle to identify as leaders. And so creating a world in which women can identify as being a leader, but also feeling empowered to lead is absolutely crucial. And of course, that takes courage. That the theme for today, Live and Lead with Courage, is one that's very close to my heart, because I believe that courage, that attribute of courage, being willing to take action in the presence of our fears, in the presence of our doubts, being willing to take a risk for a cause that we believe in, is absolutely essential to good leadership. Male leadership, female leadership, all leadership. And right now, when we see so much around us that isn't as we would like it to be, I don't think there's ever been a more important time to live and to lead with courage. So yes, we just referred to me growing up on a farm, big sister of 7, and my father milked cows for 50 years. My mum was originally a nun. I was Margaret Mary. Was very much in the feminine role of the traditional role of raising the kids. And when I was growing up, I have to say, my own vision for myself, my own ambitions didn't extend much further than the back fence of our farm. It was a couple hundred acres in the southeast corner of Australia. And I know for me, there was a lack of female role models, female leader role models. In fact, the only female leader that I can think of as a child was Margaret Thatcher. And I'm pleased today that we have way more women in leadership roles that are very prominent in the world. And they're diverse too. You know, we don't just have Margaret Thatchers, we have so many different types of women leaders. And I think we need to see more of them, because we cannot be what we cannot see. Having female role models who we can look to for inspiration to know, it is possible, is so important for women the world over. Yet Bob alluded to the number of women leading S&P 500 companies. Well, you know, if you use the Fortune 500 companies, there's 37 women leading it, the highest number ever. But that still is just over 7% of women. And even heads of state around the world, we know there's far fewer women leading heads of state. And yet, as we've seen, you've probably read articles about it, the countries being led by women tend to have been managing this pandemic that bit better in terms of case studies and proportional fatalities. Does that make women better leaders? Absolutely not. Do women manage crisis better? No. But often the women have to be better leaders in order to move into those roles, because there are biases and it is harder for women often to advance to senior roles. And so for you, if you're a woman watching this now, I want to share with you 4 ways that you can live and lead with more courage. And if you're a man watching this now, I want to say thank you for supporting women. Thank you for championing women to be leaders, because as a woman who I'm married to a great man, raising 3 sons, I know that I am more emboldened and more empowered when there are men around me cheering me on. And I think it's absolutely vital that we all are working hand in hand to level that playing field, to create that world. And so to you, women watching this, I just want to say, firstly, dial up your daring. I shared a slide at the beginning, I don't know if you caught it, but you'll be able to get back to it, that we women often sell ourselves short. Now we know there's a great study that was done by Bain & Company that entering the workforce, women are every bit as ambitious as men, but within 10 years, many women have dialed down their ambition when they enter that playing field and realize, you know what, maybe it's tilted against me. And we have what's called a leaky pipeline, where women opt out at various points along their leadership journey or their career journey, because it gets too hard. And often that's particularly in the case when we start having children. And so I encourage you to connect with a vision for your future as a leader, one that inspires you, one that is meaningful to you, because having a vision holds power. And be more ambitious than you might feel you have the right to be. I know growing up, I remember saying to my mum, I'd really love to be a journalist like Christiane Amanpour. And my mother said, but darling, you don't read the paper enough. You don't know enough about what's going on in the world. And it was years later, I realized we didn't get the paper. We didn't talk about what was going on in the world. And so sometimes we have to be more ambitious even than the people around us might think is good for us. And we certainly need to be more ambitious than we might feel we ourselves have the right to be. Margaret Wheatley, a wonderful leadership authority globally, she said, never has there been a more important time in the world to decide who we want to be as leaders. And so for you, as you cast your mind ahead, 5 years from now, 10 years, 20 years, I encourage you to think about, who is it that you want to be as a leader? The comedian Lily Tomlin once said, I always wanted to be someone. I should have been more specific. So think about, who is it that you want to be? Secondly, embrace your difference. Embrace what makes you, you. I think men make great leaders too. So this isn't about saying women are better leaders. In fact, the best leaders possess a mixture of feminine and masculine leadership traits, and the best teams have diversity. They need diversity. We know that when we have more diverse teams, they make better decisions and produce stronger results. And they have better bottom line outcomes as well. Google did a study called Project Aristotle, where they looked at the highest performing teams. And those teams had what's been called as psychological safety, a lot of psychological safety. And what they exhibited was strong characteristics that are often thought of as feminine characteristics. There were strong levels of empathy and curiosity and generosity and collaboration. so often women discount themselves and devalue the strengths that they have to bring. Power has no gender, leadership has no gender. And yet often when we think of what a leader looks like, when we think of what power looks like, we tend to think in masculine terms. We have a mental template that is very masculine. And yet your greatest value doesn't come from trying to fit in and conform to some idea of what a leader's supposed to look like. It actually comes from bringing your full self, your full strengths to the tables wherever you're seated. And so when all you do is try and fit in and adapt and conform, actually then all you offer is conformity, and you negate the difference that your difference makes. And every one of us is different. I mean, none of us are the same, which is where the value of diversity is. And so I encourage you to really embrace what makes you unique. Now, of course, we do have to adapt our styles to different situations. That's just common sense. We need to be adaptive so that we can be effective in different situations. But being adaptable and being authentic aren't two different sides of the coin. Actually, that's a false dichotomy. You can still be adaptive in adapting your style to the situation while being true to yourself. And I encourage you, as you think about, well, what are my unique strengths? What's my style? To really own the difference that your difference makes, because it is in the diversity that we can come up with better ways of moving forward. We don't want everyone thinking alike. Thirdly, I encourage you not to wait for confidence before you step up to the leadership plate, before you speak up, before you even go after something that really inspires you and excites you. You know, you've probably heard of the gender confidence gap, and that's because it's been pretty well researched. Women tend to devalue their strengths, and they tend to doubt themselves more and back themselves less often than men. Not all the time, but often. And if you think about the old style of leadership, the general pattern command and control approach to leadership, well, that's given away now to a more affiliative style of leadership, one that reconstructs power, that notion of power, from power over people to power with. It's much more collaborative. And it's one where women are really strong. We have every reason to be confident in ourselves. Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, she was questioned and criticised early on in her leadership for being too soft and too empathetic for her to be a strong leader. And yet we have seen time and time again her leadership, as New Zealand has dealt with various crises. It's a small country, earthquakes, terror attacks, and obviously this pandemic. We have seen her style of leadership be incredibly effective. And so you don't have any reason to doubt yourself. And yet so often we buy into stories, those little voices in the back of our head that say, who do you think you are to be a leader? Who do you think you are to be whatever it is that you might aspire to be? So I encourage you to doubt your doubts. Now, self-doubt isn't all bad. And in fact, people who don't doubt themselves enough can be dangerous. But we also have to be careful not to let our doubts, those negative noises in our heads that are telling us that we aren't smart enough, that we're not talented enough, that we're not experienced enough, we're not educated enough, keep us from putting ourselves forward. Hewlett-Packard did a study internally of their employees, and they were looking at, well, why is it that when we have at least 50% women coming in at entry-level positions, why we have so few women at the top? And what they found was that when a position was being advertised internally, the men would put themselves forward when they had about 6 out of 10 of the criteria that they were looking for the role. Women didn't put themselves forward and nominate their candidacy for roles unless they had 10 out of 10 of those traits. We are more likely to think we have to be excellent at everything, have nailed everything, have mastered all of it before we speak up, step up, put our hand up. And yet, when you don't do that, you deprive yourself of the very experiences that would build your competencies, that would grow your capacity, that would boost your confidence to take on bigger challenges, to step in to bigger roles, and to be feeling more comfortable with your ability to use power and to wield power. And so if you're thinking right now about, well, what would I be doing if I was being really ambitious? What's a vision that really inspires me? I encourage you, don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until you think, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't wait until you have mastered every aspect of what you think you need to know before you start. Perfectionism can be good if you're a brain surgeon, but perfectionism can get in the way of us just taking the very actions that we are capable of taking right now, of backing ourselves, of saying, you know what, I'm going to give this a go and put myself out there. So I encourage you to doubt your doubts, defy your doubts. I wrote about this in my most recent book, You've Got This, because my research has shown that when it comes to second guessing ourselves, we women absolutely excel. You've probably heard the Helen Reddy song, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. I'll spare singing it to you right now. but yeah, we can roar. But many times you're more likely to hear a lot of the women around you second guessing themselves, talking themselves down, honing in on what they didn't do well or what they could have done better, or worrying about when people are going to cotton on to the fact that actually maybe, you know, they're going to realize I'm not as smart as they think, or I'm not as worthy of being where I am as they think. You may have experienced imposter syndrome yourself once or twice. I know I certainly have. Just that kind of fear of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here, and when will people realize, well, maybe I'm really not that good. But the fact is, you have everything it takes to do what it is that you're inspired to do. And you don't have to know it all before you start out. You can learn as you go. And so when that little voice comes into your head, I encourage you to challenge it. How do you know that you don't have what it takes? And in most of the time, those doubts, when we give them the power to keep us from stepping forward, we actually deprive ourselves of those experiences to learn. So just remember, when you doubt your power, you give power to your doubts. And that's why, don't wait for confidence, but my fourth key piece of advice to share with you is to lean toward risk. A study by KPMG found that 43% of women in professional roles are unwilling to take the career risks needed to advance. Now, when it comes to risk taking, research shows that men are more willing to take risks. And whether that's because we're raised differently than women, or whether it's because of our biology, it doesn't matter why. What matters is that you're willing to take a risk more often. You see, when we're thinking about taking a risk, our brains are wired to focus more on what could go wrong than on what could go right. We are just wired with a loss aversion bias, with a risk aversion bias. But women, we tend to underestimate our ability to deal with the consequences of risk. And because we tend to underestimate our ability to deal with that, we're more likely to be overly cautious. There's nothing wrong with being well considered. Women are more considered when it comes to risk taking. It's another reason why we need to have diversity of all types at decision-making tables. But often we hold back from taking risks. And what I know myself, having stepped outside my own comfort zone many times since leaving my parents' farm, Even to go to university, no one had gone to university. Moving to a city, big city, that was scary. There was a risk, right? But what I've learned from taking a lot of risks over the years is that only when we're willing to risk the safety and the familiarity of where we are now, can we open up the door to the opportunities and the possibilities that we want most. And by taking a risk, we realize actually, maybe I didn't need to be so concerned. We also build our tolerance for risk taking as we go. Now, on the flip side of that, when we don't take a risk, we miss out on the learning that we get. Daniel Gilbert from Harvard University found that we are more easily able to justify an excess of courage than an excess of cowardice. So looking back on the actions we've taken, most people regret more the risks that they didn't take than the ones that they did. I interviewed the president, former president of the United Nations Foundation just last year, and she was sharing with me the risks that she didn't take are the ones that she regrets the most. Her fear of failure kept her from taking the very actions that would have allowed her to be more successful as she looked back on her career journey. And so for you, I encourage you, as you think about, will I do it? Will I not do it? Should I put my hand up? Should I speak up? I encourage you to follow the advice of Beyonce. Beyonce said, I'm not one to gamble, but if I'm going to make a bet, I'm going to bet on myself. So wherever you are in your career journey, or if you're just still starting out, you're studying, I encourage you to back yourself more, to doubt yourself less, and to act with the courage that you wish you had. Because as I learned growing up on the farm and riding horses, growth and comfort can't ride the same horse. And if all you're doing is what's comfortable for you, if all you're doing is what feels really safe and you're not putting yourself on the line in any way, then you're depriving yourself of the opportunities to learn and to grow and to realize that that little voice in your head that's saying, oh no, you shouldn't roar too loud, that's really the imposter. So live and lead with courage. Never has the world needed women to step up to the leadership plate as much as it does now. Never has the world needed all of us, male and female, to act with the courage that we wish we saw more of in some of those leaders around us. And so whatever your fears may be, don't let fear sit in the driver's seat. Really commit to making a stand for the leader that you want to be. Step into your power, own your difference. Don't wait until you're ready. And most of all, lead with courage. Thank you.
We would like to thank Margie for sharing her time, experience, energy, and passion with us today. You're certainly an inspiration to us all. Next, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Ashford University alumna, doctoral candidate, and associate faculty member, Gerri Wilson. Gerri holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Public Relations and Marketing and a Master of Arts degree in Organizational Management with a specialization in leadership from Ashford University. She's currently pursuing her PhD in Organizational Management and Leadership, specializing in organizational diversity. She's a member of several honor societies, including Golden Key International, Alpha Sigma Lambda, and Sigma Beta Delta. Gerri's a former chief of staff at Perkins Management Services Company and currently serves as a management consultant. She also serves as a member of the Forbes School of Business and Technology Human Resource Management Program Committee and is one of the founding officers of the Ashford University Forbes School of Business and Technology Society for Human Resource Management chapter. Please join me in welcoming Gerri.
Thanks, Brandy. And thank you to the organizers for extending this amazing invitation. I'm humbled and honored to be part of this most relevant group. My journey to doctoral candidacy was not planned. Even obtaining a master's degree was not planned. But along the way, I was fortunate to meet some very influential women who inspired me to keep learning and keep pushing towards my full potential. I questioned my ability oftentimes when life happened, and often thought to myself, I don't have what it takes. I can't do this. But I was always reminded that success does not come without sacrifice. That was my motivation. That is my motivation, to keep pushing and reaching for better. Aside from my family, next slide, please. Aside from my family, who are my greatest supporters and from whom I get my strength, I was fortunate to have met 3 strong women leaders, 3 very different in their approach to leadership, but all of whom have been influential in my success. As my HRM professor during my master's program, Dr. Katie Theory empowered me when she asked me to be a founding officer of the Forbes School of Business and Technology SHRM chapter at Ashford University. She didn't stop there though. She continued to place me in the path of opportunities that helped me gain the confidence I needed to become a leader in corporate America as well as higher education. Mrs. Brenda Walker, whom I worked with at Benedict College years ago, led by example and inspired me to always lead with integrity. Dr. Peggy Sundstrom, who when I was about to quit the doctoral program, without even knowing, was the sole reason I decided to tough it through. She saw my potential, and after only one phone call that she suggested, mind you, the fire within me was reignited, and I have not looked back since. Her approach to leadership and instructional delivery is nothing short of amazing. All 3 women leaders have played major roles in influencing the kind of leader I am today. Because of the support I received from Dr. Theory and the encouragement, next slide, please. Because of the support I received from Dr. Theory and the encouragement, support, and influence of Mrs. Walker and Dr. Sundstrom, I was able to build my confidence as a strong leader in my field. I literally saw myself grow as I tried to model my approach to leadership and my delivery of same after these women leaders. In my position as Chief of Staff at Perkins Management, I was able to take my seat at the table of a predominantly all-male executive team where my opinion didn't matter and my voice was heard. One very important lesson I learned from these women is that as women leaders, we must be willing to share our knowledge and not feel threatened that sharing somehow takes away from us. Success to me is knowing that I played a small part in someone else's success. So to give back, I established a mentoring program for young women entering college to help prepare them for future leadership roles and opportunities. I also served in leadership roles with a few nonprofits as well as other organizations, and most recently have begun exploring the idea of consulting opportunities in the field of organizational development, which I hope will lead to entrepreneurship in the near future. And finally, with the large disparity in leadership opportunities for women, it is super important that we as leaders inspire, empower, and support other women in our various industries to become future leaders. I think it is our responsibility to identify potential in as many young women as possible and be willing to mentor and coach by sharing our experiences and knowledge to not only help them develop as leaders and take their seat at the table in due time, but more importantly, to help bridge the gap of gender disparity in the workplace. Were it not for these three women taking an interest in me or seeing the potential in me, reaching out to me, I doubt I would be the leader I am today. Thank you for your time, and I'll now pass it on back to Brandy.
Now I'll introduce Jenny Walker, and she's going to talk about the Center for Women's Leadership Research Center.
Thank you, Brandy, and hello, everyone. I'd like to thank Gerri as both an established leader in your field and as a student at Ashford. Your insights are so valuable to our university community and to this new Center for Women's Leadership, so we're grateful to you for being here today. We'd like each of you in this event to know how important you are to the center as well. You are the heart of this center, and we invite your input and your participation. The center was really created to serve you and to support you in your growth as a leader. And in that spirit, we're inviting everyone to complete a brief survey, it's about 5 minutes, that will help us understand how we can serve you in the activities of the center. The survey link is listed on the screen, and we will also commit to send this out to everyone who's registered for the event. The center has a research team who will ensure that the results of the survey are used to really tailor our activities and events for your needs. We encourage you to stay engaged through our website and also through our LinkedIn group. There'll be professional development resources that we have created for you by our research team, as well as educational events like this one that we will periodically offer. So please reach out. Understand this is a two-way partnership between you all and the board members and participants in the center. And on that note, I'd like to hand this over to one of our other CWL board members, Dr. Irina Weisblatt.
Thank you, Jenny. It is my pleasure to invite you all to the Teaching and Learning Conference in November 2020. This annual conference that connects, engages, and inspires collaboration has become a great Ashford's tradition. At the Teaching and Learning Conference, the Center for Women's Leadership will conduct a panel discussion that will focus on the center's mission, vision, and purpose, and services and benefits of the center to our membership. The panel will include Bob Daugherty, the Dean of Forbes School of Business and Technology, and our department chairs, Drs. Katie Thury, Karen Ivey, Maya Zetsche, and other board members. The panelists will also introduce the current center's activities and unveil plans for the future. We will share the results of our survey that Jenny just mentioned, and we will also identify, through that survey, what how it may inform the center's future direction. This event in November is a great opportunity to engage with the audience and answer any questions that you may have for us. We will also announce the upcoming sessions and dates on our center's website, so take a look at that. We look forward to all of you joining us at the Teaching and Learning Conference on November 3rd, 2020. And now back to Maya.
Thank you so much, Irina. We look forward to TLC in November and upcoming educational opportunities for our members. Now we would like to thank those of you who already partnered up with us or decided to become a sponsor, and to extend our invite to all of you who are here on behalf of your companies to consider collaborating and sponsoring our organization, our educational programs, resources, and future events. Now we would like to present one of the organizations which already decided to sponsor us. Skylar McCurran is the owner of the consulting business La Red Balloon. We would like to thank La Red Balloon and Skylar. We appreciate their support and their trust in our mission. Skylar is a business owner, performer, negotiation and self-advocacy coach, financial advisor trainee at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and she's been co-leading a series of programs across San Diego with a focus in the southeast of the city. She trains leaders in the life-saving work of self-advocacy through salary negotiation. In just under 1 year, her participants have collectively earned over $500,000 through negotiation. She's a native of San Diego and received her BA in Communication Studies from La Jolla Marymount University. And also she has her master's degree in organizational management, so she is our alumni. Her fervent belief in radical inclusion, disruptive systems change, and her personal journey of overcoming obstacles that many women, minority women in particular, face in corporate setting are quite inspirational. We now invite Skylar to share some of her experiences, and we thank her for her support.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Zetsche. I appreciate that warm introduction. Happy Friday to all of you. I would like to start just by sharing, I remember the very first time that I negotiated and advocated for better pay. I was working in talent development, and at the time I was making $43,000 a year. And I overheard some of my coworkers talking about what they were making. And I will never forget hearing that some of the people that I was in fact training were making 3 times as much as me. That was the day that I decided that I was going to go in and have a conversation with my boss. So I did some research, I got my wits about me, and let me tell you that I went in there trembling and nervous. But I sat down and I asked for $50,000. They met me at $48,000, still barely even touching, again, a third of what my colleagues were making. Now that at the time was a huge win for me. Now in retrospect, I realize it wasn't even a win at all. But after that conversation, I decided to never discuss money again. In fact, I had built up an entire system around avoiding money, around not talking about it. And after I left that position, I started to work for myself. And when you work for yourself, you're constantly having to have conversations around your own pay, around your rates, etc. And when that moment came, I was quiet. I would just prefer to put it on a piece of paper, slide it across, and never discuss it. In me not discussing it and choosing to let the fear take over, instead of me having and leading a conversation around my own equity, I missed out. And in fact, research shows that given a professional woman's 41-year career history, starting at the age of 26, she will miss out on over $650,000 to $1 million of not negotiating for herself. That's life-changing money. That's the difference between being able to purchase a house, getting braces put on your children's teeth, and also investing in the communities that you love. I was very, very, very lucky. While I was working for myself, I met a mentor who is the world's leading pay negotiation expert. She has helped women negotiate for millions of dollars, and she's also helped them build million-dollar books of business. And I got super lucky that I met her. And the first time that I negotiated for pay over the phone, she literally was holding up a sign in front of me, telling me what to say and telling me when to be quiet. From that day, I have learned so much. And mostly I've learned how to lead an unemotional, fact-driven dialogue around what's fair. As Dr. Zetsche was sharing, in the past year, we've helped our community of over 147 self-advocates earn over $500,000. Later on, I'll be hosting a session that will be hosted by the Center for Women's Leadership, and it will be around self-advocating and negotiating for better pay. You will leave that session with a script and language so that you will also be advocating for your own equity. And just so you know, this conversation, it seeps into everything that we do. This is the same conversation in which possibly you're asking for your partner or significant other to cook dinner twice or two weeks out of the month instead of 1 week. It's the same conversation when you're asking someone to possibly meet you in the middle if you're going to, well, we're not meeting each other in person now, but quite possibly you have a friendship in which you feel like you're the only one that's giving and you are really looking to be matched. This is the same doorway. And so what I was left with was the feeling of how much money did I leave on the table from simply being afraid? And so if you would have asked me 5 years ago that I would, A, have ever negotiated for myself again, B, that I would be teaching other people how to negotiate, and C, that I would be now standing strong and trying to create a pathway for others through becoming a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch, well, I would have called you a liar. But we all become the person that we need. And so for those of you that are out there who are really deserving and who are ready to approach a conversation around their own economic justice, I want to share the quote that my mentor, Anne-Marie Hoftailing, shared with me. The day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk that it took to blossom. And standing on the other side of that bloom, I promise you the juice is worth the squeeze and that you can absolutely do it. And that you deserve to do it and that you are worth the work that this requires. So on the next page, you'll also see that I've shared my website, some of my contact information. And so if you need to have a conversation sooner than the Center for Women Leadership's event, which they'll be sharing at a later date, and I understand that these conversations are, when they need to happen, they need to happen. You can reach out to me and I'll be happy to support you and to encourage you, and most of all, to help you advocate for your fair pay, what you deserve, and quite simply, what is your market value? Thank you so much. Have a happy Friday. Be well, take care of yourself, and be good to one another. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Skylar, for the inspirational presentation. Thank you, everyone, for attending this marvelous event. As we mentioned, we have set a series of quite ambitious goals for this organization, and would like to encourage all of you to join us in a dialogue on how we can position it to effectively serve our students, alumni, staffers, faculty, and community as a whole. This organization aims to add value and empower current and future women leaders. Please also stay tuned for our next session in the fall with Dr. Diane Hamilton, behavioral expert, author, radio show host, Take the Lead with Dr. Diane, speaker, consultant, the creator of the Curiosity Code Index, and one of the Thinkers 50 Radar, top innovative thinkers in the world in 2020. Her topic is Developing Curiosity, the Key to Successful Women Leadership. Now, please stay connected with us. You can do so through the LinkedIn group, Center for Women's Leadership at Forbes School of Business and Technology. Also, please check out our website for the future events and join us as one of the members. The membership link is part of this PowerPoint, will be on our site as well. Benefits of membership are networking, professional development, research, and mentoring. If you are interested in getting involved, please email us at centerforwomensleadership@ashford.edu. We will follow up with all of you who attended here in Zoom and also those on Facebook Live with the links and this PowerPoint. Thank you again to all of our speakers, all of our participants, CWL board members, and supporters. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.